Hi, this is Sean Wallace, the Dark Destroyer from the Chase, and you're listening to The Late Shift. I don't listen to it, but it's probably adequate. Keep on listening, or else.
Hello and welcome to The Late Shift. My name is Val and I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts
James,
Saul,
and Jonah.
Guys, important news flash. Still no emails. Seriously, shiftyfans at gmail.com. I want to receive at least one email.
would it make you feel better if
even-
I make a fake account called absolutely not a member of the late shift at gmail.com and message you being like, it's okay,
Well,
but
that sounded like a great idea, but you've told me now, James.
okay, well,
Guys,
you said something
seriously,
with the same
even
name.
if you just message Saul and tell him he's a dick.
I really love that this was prefaced with breaking news.
Breaking news. Still no emails.
Still no contact.
Good night.
Breaking news, Arctic's still gold.
Well, I think it's not unrealistic. I think it's not unrealistic that people just don't want to listen to 3 hours of us shooting the shit. I think now that we're trying to shorten things down, maybe we'll have more visibility and more engagement.
I think, hear me out, we're the Bolsheviks.
Yeah.
No one's taking us serious right now, but when things go south, we're going to seize a couple of post offices, kill a couple of aristocrats. All of a sudden, we're the government.
Actually, today I learned how to do recorded mail delivery, so I can totally do that.
I honestly thought for a second that you were like, today I learned how to make a bomb.
Yeah, pipe bomb.
Well, I think if we're going to take over post offices, we don't want to inconvenience the people by making their mail not.
no, we absolutely
It's okay, I know a guy that's actually good at bomb making.
Sorry to bother you, revolution going on, everyone carry on as normal.
The whole point about seizing the post offices is that you interrupt the service. It's not like you storm the trains and go, business as usual, we're going to charge people less. We're sick of these tariffs.
No, because I thought like most protests are kind of led by people from migrant backgrounds, which means that you as an immigrant come in and steal the jobs.
I'm not sure if you're joking anymore. I can't tell where the madness and the stupidity starts.
I'm joking.
No, but the point is that you seize the post offices or the infrastructure and you cut it off.
You seize the means of production.
Yeah, so people don't know what's going on. You don't
Yeah, so no more stamps for old women.
You don't keep it running. It's so people get celeb like, what's going on in St. Petersburg? We've taken the post offices. Business as usual. It's not
No,
like an
business
under
is
new
better.
management site. You just hang up at the door. They're like, the damn Bolsheviks did such a good job running the mail that they took over the whole country.
The little stamps going around, this little like vote for Lenin on
Yeah,
them.
very confusing. The White Russians were actually the Royal Mail Service, who were in open rebellion against this new, more efficient Soviet system.
Look, I'm just revolutionizing.
Yeah, that kind of. We should take. It's such. I think a kind of modern, liberal way to protest, which is we're going to seize it aggressively, and then we're going to try and run it better and prove that we were right the whole time. And it's like you're still going to get rubber bullets in the teeth. So,
Look think about how hardcore you'd look with rubber bullets in your teeth, also stamping a letter.
okay, well, I'm going to tell you this. You go out now. You go with Pia, and you you go up to policemen and you call them, I don't know, something really mean, a series of expletives I can't say here, and wait
Or
for him
just
to
smelly.
or in fact you just stand too close to him and he'll bloody Sunday you and just open fire. Now that's topical. That dates this point.
Oh.
And he'll just fire a rubber bullet right to the back of your throat, and you tell me if it's still cool.
I love the fact that you preface the story by saying, take Peter. I love that since the Peter episode, he's become such a big part of like our friendship.
He's a
group.
mascot. The Late
He's a
Shift mascot. No, because then we will lose Russian bots. No.
No,
at this point-
Russian bots will be here to attack us.
At this point, US senators and Russian bots are the only thing keeping the lights on in this place.
Hey, and one person whose name begins with an M who seems to have now followed us and have still listens to loads of episodes. We have the one fan.
One fan.
I don't know if I should use their username or not.
No,
No,
but just
they know who they are.
They know who they are. They know that they're loved, and
Yeah.
we're finally happy they came.
We're happy that you finally heard that little something.
An
that
email,
just
the Late
tipped you over the edge.
shiftyfans at gmail.com. You, whose username begins with M. You.
You know who you are.
So keep going, you might sound a little bit more lonely.
Yeah, a little bit more.
I hope right now that when you log on to SoundCloud tomorrow, that M has unsubscribed when this episode comes out in protest. I'm not here for the glory, guys. Leave me alone.
It's fine. No, M can email me and say, "Is it okay? You know, if we dox the username, and we'll give a big shout out with hugs and kisses."
Yeah. Okay, but having said all that, shall we get into the story?
Which story? Who's
Good
first?
story.
Today's first story, I think, will be coming from Jonah.
Yeah, returning to one of our favourite stomping grounds, which is, of course, Tudor gossip.
Ooh, I'm excited.
So my story for today comes from, it's obviously 24th of March 1550, when the Treaty of Boulogne ended the War of the Rough Wooing.
That sounds like fake shit.
It
How
sounds
is this
like
real?
the War of the Rough Wooing sounds like a children's TV show's like darker backstory that they'd put in, like for the adults.
It sounds like my dad trying to explain courtship to me as a child.
Yeah, it sounds like me.
You pin her in and you rough woo.
Actually, this makes my dad sound like a horrible person. He's a lovely man.
You heard it.
Soft wooing.
Saul's dad is
Soft
a
wooing.
rough wooer.
No, my dad is
Are you telling me your father is incapable of rough wooing? He can't.
I
He
don't-
can't take command. He's only soft with the lights off and crying.
I think he's a very diverse wooer.
Do you think you were conceived equal parts tears as you were anything else? Sorry.
So, full disclosure, this is sometimes called the 8 Years' War, the 9 Years' War. I don't know why people have two different lengths for it, but
Just
it
like
was,
wooing.
It was a war fought between England, started by our old friend Henry VIII,
Yes.
against Scotland, and also France, because obviously Scotland and
France.
France
France
were best
were-
pals at the time.
Yeah.
And it was to try and force, well, it partly was to try and force one of our other previous topics, the very young Mary Queen of Scots, to marry the then Prince Edward, who had become Edward VI when Henry VIII died. So yeah, the main objectives as far as Henry was concerned was to try and break up the French-Scottish alliance, to weaken Scotland, and to get his son married to the Scottish princess, and then kind of secure that alliance. It went really badly. So I mean, the English won initially, which and then shortly afterwards Scotland fell into a civil war, because obviously Mary was, I think, technically, James V had died. So Mary, Queen of Scots, was technically queen, but obviously there was a regent who was called Regent Arran, but he was disliked both by the Douglas faction and by the Earl of Lennox. So Scotland was in civil war. England shows up, wins a victory, and then sets fire to Edinburgh. And having done that, burn their way back to England through the Scottish lowlands.
Right.
Immediately after that point, Scotland was no longer in a civil war.
Like, we've got more important fish to
This
fry.
is, just so you know, the characteristic back and forth you expect from the War of the Rough Wooing.
Marry my
A fiery exit does sound like a characteristic point of rough wooing.
Yeah. So, and then, so the war. So Scotland now unified, having
Bad
dealt with
stuff.
some burning discharge.
Yeah.
just like a vindaloo.
Starts getting its shit together, and then the French show up.
Yes.
Then a Frenchman staggers in. Okay.
No, 10,000 Frenchmen show up just to make it even rougher.
For sloppy seconds.
And the French are really keen on helping Scotland out here. So Mary, Queen of Scots, is promptly shipped off to Paris, and she's betrothed to the Dauphin of France, as we know.
Yep.
And they're so keen, in fact, that one of the French, well, I don't think he's French, but he worked for the French, a guy called Piero Strozzi, is an engineer they brought with them to shore up some of the defences.
A plumber here to fix the pipes before.
Yeah, no one
rough
knows
wooing
how.
begins.
No one had
Slash
decided
pizza
how they were
delivery.
going to. No one knew how they were going to pay him, but there was some arrangements to be made. But he was whatever his promised payment was. He was super keen, because at so the English had taken a castle, the name of which escapes me, and during the siege, Piero was shot in the leg, not his third leg, just one of his regular legs.
Yeah.
The innuendos are going to lie thick and fast through this whole. But whatever he had been promised, he was keen to get, because he was then sent to shore up the defences of Leith Castle.
Okay.
which he was doing. He had to be carried about in a chair by 4 other dudes because he had been shot in the leg, but he was still working.
Yeah.
So so this war went on, and eventually got nowhere and was ended.
Was his leg okay?
I don't know. His Piero's story, it peters out.
I'm saying, were there four
still
men who
comes
were
in-
employed throughout the war to carry him around for 9 years?
Well, he comes in with so much, gusto and like, kind of eagerness that he just burns out quick. And
Quick finish.
yeah.
I think a lot of the people who started this war couldn't see it all the way through to the end. Like Henry dies at one point.
Oh,
So
rookie
it's-
mistake.
So it,
Don't die during your war. Makes
guess-
it difficult to carry on.
So Edward the First did that as well.
Very first to do. A lot of English kings go up to start wars. in
How many
Scotland
people
and die
actually-
halfway through?
Yes.
Sorry, how many people actually died in this? But
It's-
obviously it went on for a while, but
The
like
problem
most...
with a lot of older wars
Yeah.
is, no one was walking around counting the dead.
Yeah.
It only comes later that we start, with logistics and modern.
there
I was
were
going to say that's
there
also
were
most people exaggerating armies. So it
Yeah.
doesn't really help.
there were a couple of key. There's one battle at the beginning, the English win. There's a battle at the end that the Scottish win. There's some sieges in between. And obviously, a city was set fire to. So war went kind of nowhere. Mary didn't marry Edward. And,
No, she proceeded to have a terrible life
yeah.
in many different ways.
And,
As you'll know from our previous episodes.
If only she had married Edward.
links in the description to what if she had married an English king.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it ended on this day, 1550, with the Treaty of Boulogne, where France and Scotland told
I'm assuming
England to
they-
sit the fuck down.
At that point, they're being mediated by the Holy Roman Empire of Bologna,
Quite possibly.
probably.
I'm just really happy I know about a rough wooing as a thing that
What's
I
a
could
rough
bring up.
Doesn't get much rougher than,
Yeah,
I would
but-
like to marry you. No, we're going to war.
Yeah, well, again, like,
Oh, that's why it's called that.
Yeah, the
I
rough wooing.
thought it was just a massive
No, it
innuendo.
was... it was
Which I guess it is still.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah,
but
but-
it was called that because it was ostensibly over the Scots refusing to marry Mary Queen, the future
think-
Mary Queen of
Do you
Scots,
think
to
at
Edward.
any point they were hoping that Mary would be flattered by the attention?
I was about to say, there's something.
She was like 6 at the time.
To be fair, I think even a 6-year-old must appreciate the Helen of Troy feeling when people are just killing themselves over you and you don't know why, but like you feel important. I feel like I don't know why you all looked at me like I was about to drop some mad pedo shit. Even as a 6-year-old, you must love a bit of rough wooing. Like you all just said and looked at me like, "Don't say it." Like what? I wasn't going that way. Like you judged me and found me guilty before I even did anything. It's like pre-crime in here. I was just saying that like there's a certain kind of thing where you'd be like, "Mummy, what do they do?" Oh, they're killing themselves over you again. I wonder why. Like that was what I was
Yeah,
saying.
it's from the point of view of the child. That's the difference.
It's like To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a masterpiece from the point of view of a child who is being sold off to feudal kings, but that's not the point. Well, who's next then, I guess, after the War of the Rough Wooing?
The next person in line for the throne and for the mic is Solly Boy.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that because mine actually kind of leads on with yours. Because in 1882, Robert Koch announced the discovery of Microbacterium tuberculosis. What would have happened to Edward? He died of TB. There we go. Yeah, so I did my research about tuberculosis because I found some scary stuff and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's a really scary disease, and it's very persistent in West
I've
London.
now- I'm
I
gonna
think it still exists.
Oh, it's
Like-
even better than that. So 1.8 million people die of tuberculosis each year, but 2 billion people on this planet have it. They're predicted, but for the fact that 95% of people have latent TB. The whole thing basically is the fact that the fact that anyone could have it, and it's the fact that it's how your immune system deals with it. So starting off, you
What
have
is it?
What's what?
What is
But
tuberculosis?
it's
What's it
bacteria.
caused by?
It's a bacterial
Right.
infection.
Well, actually, it's theorised that it started off as a bovine disease, so basically living close to cattle is and it mutated within humans. One crazy thing is that I saw is the fact that it because you can tell within skeletons of when like the signs of it. It's predicted that this has been around for at least since 5000 BC. There have
Really?
been skeletons that have shown signs within the spine of TB.
Oh, wow.
So this is an old killer.
Jesus.
Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, I just thought
It's
that
like
was absolutely
tiny
crazy.
little alien, like tiny little xenomorphs that live in your lungs and kill you.
Well, I mean, of what I saw, because we're going to go to a biology class now.
Yay!
Did you bring a lung to dissect?
No, unfortunately not. How it starts is the fact that from the NHS website, tuberculosis is caused by bacteria. Yeah, we all know that. But so basically, it's microscopic bacteria within air, because it's an airborne, it's an aerobic bacteria. And the thing is, one thing that made me laugh was the fact that it said that tuberculosis can be spread through coughs, speaking, sneezes, spits, laughs, or singing. I was like, so could you not just say any air exhaled? Why was that so specific?
Right now, can I ask you a question to the group though?
A yawn.
Which singer?
No, not yawning.
Which singer do you think would be the worst one that you'd be most upset with if they infected you with TB? Like, you were watching a performance of this singer and they gave you TB through their singing. Ooh. What would you like? What song in particular, sung by an artist, would you want to... No, hear me out. Let me explain. What song, that you were listening to live that was being sung at you by an artist would you be most upset gave you TB and killed you?
The most obvious one is Take My Breath Away, right?
I can't think of a song.
You can't think of a single song right now. That
no, I can think of songs, James, but not one that I'd be like, oh, it's such a shame that I died of TB because of this one song.
I feel like it's an interesting thing for our fans to email us over, is it not? What song do you hope doesn't kill you?
Which song, if sung, would you be upset about if you died? shiftyfans@gmail.com.
From
Very
TB.
eloquently
From TB
phrased.
specifically.
Yeah.
Very eloquently phrased.
I mean, you could have TB. Who knows? 95% of 2 billion people.
95% of 2 billion people, or 95% of the human race as a whole?
No. 95% of 2 billion people are predicted to have it. 95% of those people...
It's latent.
It's latent.
Yeah.
Although tuberculosis is contagious, it is hard to catch, and that's because our immune systems do their job. But there's two things that can happen with your immune system. You breathe in the particles that goes into your lungs. You then have something within your lungs called macrophage. Macrophage is a bacteria that will... which is amazing. Absorb and put tuberculosis into a
little timeout zone.
Yeah, basically, it's called a phagosome.
Phagocytes.
Right. So macrophage in the lungs collects foreign cells and digests them, or phagocytizes them, which I like the idea of. So essentially, what it does is it absorbs it and contains it, and then it has lysosome, which produces hydrolytic enzymes to break down. But the thing is about tuberculosis is the fact that it produces a protein to inhibit this, and then it spreads within the cell. But then even then, you've got the immune system then progresses to try and contain that cell that's been... Why are you laughing?
Because he's laughing and...
It's phagosome, and it phagocytizes them. It's a pH. A pH, okay? Yeah, so the tuberculosis basically creates a protein to inhibit its digestion, and then it contains in the cell, and then the cell is then contained. The whole thing about that is the fact that if it's contained, it hasn't been digested, then it's latent tuberculosis. So you have it, but it's contained. But the whole thing with that is the fact that if, for example, in 1995, when HIV was at its peak, there were lots of people that were suffering with the symptoms of tuberculosis. And the whole thing about that is because they had latent or dormant tuberculosis.
And of course their immune system...
Their breakdown of their immune system basically released it.
Like Jurassic Park. Yeah, like Jurassic Park. Like the defences go down, it gets out.
Yeah,
it's
just contained.
Yeah.
I want to see that video essay that Jurassic Park is a metaphor for the AIDS crisis.
I'd say Michael Crichton would probably leap on it and try and be like, why not?
Yeah, think of. So your body is Jurassic Park. Tuberculosis is the dinosaurs. HIV is a power outage.
It's Dennis Nedry.
It's Dennis Nedry.
Yeah.
I was going to go for that next year.
Sorry,
HIV is Dennis Nedry. See, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. No.
So everyone just start hitting up Wayne Knight and just message him on Twitter like,
why are you
Dennis
HIV?
Nedry is HIV. And just see if he responds.
One thing that I did find out is because after finding out, how many people have TB, how many people and who have died of it, and I looked through a list of quote famous people.
Loads.
Jesus.
I know, it's great.
Famous people.
There's
TB,
people-
is that like a support group?
No, there's a website.
There's a website called Famous People with TB.
There's a section of people that have it or were diagnosed with it, and there's people that have died from it.
Mm.
So give us the dead. Give us
Oh no! Shall I? Do you want to guess? Shall I name someone and you guess if they were diagnosed or they died?
Okay, yeah, why not?
Okay.
The worst quiz game. Failed in its pilot.
Dead or dying? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, dead or dying from TB.
Did they die from TB or did
Okay.
someone else get them first?
We have number 1, King Tutankhamun.
He did.
Yes.
He's dead. So
He died of
He died
tuberculosis.
TB. Yeah, because he was really young when he died. I know. I remember that.
We have
That's 1 point to James, by the way. I just want to point that out.
Why?
Edgar Allan Poe.
Didn't die of it. He didn't die of TB. Because he got press ganged and beaten up in the street, and he died of that.
Dead.
He didn't.
He died
didn't
from
die of
TB.
TB.
It says here he died of TB.
Wait, no, wait, he got beaten. Wait, no, because I think sorry, because he got beaten up, thrown into the street, and then
he also
died of
had
TB
TB.
of the cold. Yeah.
We have Dostoevsky.
No.
yes.
He was a no. He was diagnosed, but no.
I'm on 2 for 3, baby. I'm winning.
We have George Orwell.
I think he died of lung cancer or something. I don't think he died of TB.
Dying.
I'd say yeah. He died of TB.
He died of TB.
I thought he died of lung cancer.
Well, it's in the right area.
Yeah.
We have Eleanor Roosevelt.
Teddy's daughter or wife?
No, FDR's wife.
Yeah.
Oh,
Diagnosed.
right, sorry.
She died of TB.
Ah,
And I've got some 2 hard hitters just in case you might know this. I have
disability joy.
Adolf Hitler.
I think
Did he
was-
die of
I
TB?
don't think so.
I think
I think we all know.
Adolf Hitler died via gunshot wound to the temple.
self-inflicted or not.
And lastly, we also have Nelson Mandela.
I don't know.
Died of being old, didn't he?
No, I think he died of TB.
Was he ever even alive?
No, yeah.
Yeah, Mandela effect.
I
Mandela
remember-
never existed.
Yeah, he was actually a Bernstein bear.
According to this website, he is still alive. So I think that's a bit old.
Okay. And on that, let's move on to our next story, which is James.
So we have. I wanted to talk about something, which is almost the third horseman of the war and pestilence. So I'm going to cover the Japanese internment camps in America in 1942.
Really fits the theme.
Fits the theme,
Death.
which is death and suffering,
Yeah.
for the masses, which is really the theme of our show. It seems.
So hopefully your story, Val, is about famine.
Yeah, so because a lot of people don't know this, is that the Americans interned thousands of Japanese citizens, essentially immigrants, accusing them of being spies in concentration camps in the US.
Really?
Yeah, and they did it in 1942. So President Roosevelt, who's always kind of heralded as a good guy, he signed Executive Order 9066.
Say he was a stand-up guy.
Stand up, yeah. You didn't find, when there was justice and injustice, you didn't find him sitting down on the job.
Hey, like he interned innocent people. I can make a couple of polio jokes.
He said he obviously famously said "wheel softly and carry a big stick." And was reported to say that drinking left him legless.
He also said, we'll get through this.
Sure, it wasn't wheel softly and walk with a big stick.
So I'm assuming at this time they're ramping up for war.
No, not that.
War.
Okay, sorry.
So that joke was like...
That was so
That joke didn't really fit in. It was truly invalid.
Really? Invalid?
Guys, you're crippling my segment.
So now it just seems like we're not mocking the American president anymore. We're just mocking
The
anyone disabled.
No, we're mocking the American president FDR because he killed the British Empire, so we're allowed to have a go at him, as far as I'm concerned.
He killed the British... Him?
Yeah, he dismantled the British Empire with a lovely thing called economics and debt.
Blasted.
Yeah.
Foiled again.
Foiled again using money. So essentially, he's in 1942. So on this day in 1942, FDR signed the Executive Order 9066, which essentially started the policy of the US government that anyone of Japanese descent in the US was interred in isolated camps, essentially, because they were accusing them of being spies and saboteurs. And
I didn't know there were any concentration camps in America.
yeah, neither did the American population because, oh boy, we're the good guys.
When did people find out about this? Was this like an unclassified document
No,
later
it's something
on?
that they just choose to turn a blind eye to, like the genocide of the entire Native American population. You found it on blood, America. Don't deny it. And it was
America's this thing like,
I mean,
oh, I'm sorry.
it's always a vague bit because obviously we're like, yeah, you Americans, but obviously we were kind of
We
there
taught them.
slightly.
Yeah,
but we're always
I
like, we're
absolutely
just
agree.
like, you Americans. Like, well, there's a lot of Europeans.
I agree. The Europeans started it off, but I'm just saying that I just don't act like you're not as dirty as us. We're all dirty in this town.
Yeah, basically.
So the bombing of Pearl Harbor was a reaction to the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the internment of all the people of Japanese descent. Essentially,
I thought the reaction was the nuclear bombing.
No,
That's
that was
like-
the end
there
of
were
the war.
several reactions, but essentially FDR, or Franklin D. Roosevelt, I should make that clear if anyone doesn't know who he is, he signed this order with the intention of preventing espionage on American shores. And he created military zones in California, Washington, Oregon, states with a large population of Japanese Americans, and Roosevelt had them relocated to these places, these camps, basically. It affected the lives of about 117,000 people.
Jesus.
The majority of whom were American citizens, may I add. So they were interred.
This is insane. I've never heard about this. Have you guys?
I didn't know about this.
I did know that.
Yeah. Canada also did it, which was obviously in the British Empire at that point, so, like, we can't let our old child run off too wild without following suit. Mexico also did this, but there was about 21,000 Japanese people interned in Canada and about 2,200 in South America. So Peru, Brazil, Chile, all of them were doing it. That's it. Before the order, weeks before the order was given, Japanese people of Japanese descent from the Terminal Isle were forcibly removed by the Navy and taken to Los Angeles. So literally just like being imprisoned for nothing.
From where, sorry?
From the Terminal Isle.
Which is somewhere.
Somewhere. It's one of those tiny little, somewhere in the Pacific.
I mean, like, who would worry if something a little that in the Pacific was being spied on? It's like Emperor Hirohito's like,
Well, this is what I'm
we
trying
know
to say.
everything about this
is
little
the thing.
speck of dirt.
This is the thing that this is when I'm going to
They
go.
were incredibly thorough.
Yeah, they were incredibly. It happened just a couple of hours after Pearl Harbor. It all started. It was so.
So they were ready to
Yeah,
go.
yeah, they were ready to go on December the 7th, which is obviously the date of Pearl Harbor happening. Just hours after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the FBI rounded up 1,291 Japanese community and religious leaders, arresting them without evidence and freezing all their assets.
But isn't there a thing that America might have known about Pearl Harbor before it happened?
No, that was us. Yeah, we knew about.
Well, America
we knew it was
should
going to
have
happen.
known. America should have known about Pearl Harbor before
Because-
it happened because they cut off all the Japanese fuel supplies and went, well, they
Yeah.
won't be too upset about that. They were. Is the spoiler.
Yeah, we knew about it because obviously
We
it's
wanted America to be in the war.
yeah.
We needed America to be in the war. To be honest.
So that, and also obviously if we had intervened, then the Germans would have known that we had just deciphered that code.
Yeah.
So we had to keep
Yeah,
that one
yeah.
a bit hush hush.
Because we crashed the Enigma code. We cracked the Enigma code and we had to.
With the help of the
essentially-
Polish, but that's
Yeah.
never mentioned.
Well, to be fair, the Americans made a film about it and they cracked it. So, UB was like. No, that's a band, isn't it?
UB40
No,
the band, yeah.
UB40 is the band, which is like the Dole Slip, not all the submarine that the Germans had the Enigma code on. But no, so in January, all the people who were arrested were moved to Montana, New Mexico, and North Dakota. Many of them weren't allowed to inform their families at all,
Mental.
and most of them were kept there the entire length of the US involvement in the war. The FBI ransacked people's homes, seizing anything they considered contraband, anyone of Japanese descent. 1/3 of Hawaii's population was of Japanese descent. In a panic, the politicians in the US called for their mass incarceration. Any Japanese-owned fishing boats were impounded.
What the fuck?
Yeah, some Japanese residents were arrested, and 1,500 people, 1% of the Japanese population in Hawaii, were sent to camps in the US mainland. Lieutenant General John L. DeWitt, leader of the Western Defense Command, believed that the civilian population needed to be taken control of to prevent a repeat of Pearl Harbor. Because, of course, all these Japanese citizens famously hopped in their secretly home-built Zeros and dropped bombs on the US Pacific Fleet. To argue his case,
Why
DeWitt...
did they think that after Pearl Harbor the Japanese would causing a rebellion?
No, it's just simple tit for tat, as far as I'm concerned. That's what I see it as. Just you bombed our ships, we'll make you pay. To argue his case, DeWitt prepared a report with known falsehoods, such as examples of sabotage that were later revealed to be the result of cattle damage. To power lines. So he suggested that they should create military zones and Japanese detainment to the Secretary of War, who's called Henry Simpson, and Attorney General Francis Biddle. His original plan included Italians and Germans as well, though the idea of rounding up European descended Americans was not as popular, because obviously they were much larger groups than the Japanese. At congressional hearings in February 1942, a majority of testimonies, including those from California Governor Hubert L. Olson and State Attorney General Earl Warren, declared that all Japanese should be removed. Biddle pleaded with the president that mass evacuation of citizens was not required, preferring smaller, more targeted security measures. Regardless, Roosevelt signed the order. So that's Order 9066. After much chaos, about 15,000 Japanese Americans were willingly moved out of prohibited areas. Inland state citizens were not keen for new Japanese residents, and they were met with racist resistance. 10 state governors voiced their opposition, fearing that the Japanese might never leave, and demanded they be locked up if the states were forced to accept them. So they were literally, we're going to throw these people in prison if you bring them here.
Wow.
Yeah. A civil organisation called the War Relocation Authority was set up in March 1942 to administer the plan, with Milton S. Eisenhower from the Department of Agriculture to lead it. Eisenhower only lasted until June 1942, resigning in protest over what he characterised as incarcerating innocent civilians, to which they then began evacuating them to something they called assembly centres. Anyone who was at least 1/16th Japanese was evacuated, including 1,700 children under 10, as well as several thousand elderly and handicapped. Japanese Americans reported to centres were told to report to centres near their homes. From there, they were transported to a relocation centre where they might live for the months before transfer to a permanent wartime residence. These centres were located in remote areas, often reconfigured fairgrounds and racetracks, featuring buildings not meant for human habitation, like horse stalls or cow sheds that had been converted for that purpose. In Portland, Oregon, 3,000 people stayed in a livestock pavilion, the Pacific International Livestock Exposition Facilities. The Santa Anita Assembly Center, just several miles of Los Angeles, was a de facto city with 18,000 interred, 8,500 of whom lived in stables. Food shortages and substandard sanitation were prevalent in all these facilities. Yeah. Assembly centres were offered work to the detainees for the policy that they should not be paid more than the average Army private. Jobs ranged from doctors to teachers to labourers to mechanics. A couple of assembly centres were sites of camouflage net factories, which provided work. So they just worked them, basically. Although, to be fair, the US did pay their interned own citizens for it. There were opportunities for farm work during the labour shortage, and over 1,000 internees were sent to other states to do seasonal farm work. Over 4,000 internees were allowed to leave to attend college. So, better than some, I guess. There are in total 10 permanent housing camps called relocation centres, typically in the form of barracks. Several families were housed together with communal eating areas. Residents were designated as dissidents, went to a special camp in Tule Lake, California. 2 relocation centres in Arizona were locations on Indian reservations, despite protests of local tribe councils, but were overruled by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So double down on the whole piss off the Indians. The violence did occur in the camps. In Lawrenceburg, New Mexico, internees were delivered by trains and marched 2 miles at night to a camp. An elderly man attempted to flee and was shot and killed. After settling in, at least 2 men were shot and killed while trying to escape. A riot broke out on August 4th, 1942, in the Santa Anita facility. The result of anger about insufficient rations and overcrowding. Fearing a riot, police tear gas crowds, and 1 man was killed by the police.
But I imagine more people died than actually says on the record, because there was nobody who would really keep track of how many people went in and how many people came out. Because by the time do you know what I'm saying? Like there wasn't any interest of the American government to keep track of how many people.
But
died.
I don't know. Well, no, the whole point was that they were keeping track of people. Yeah. So I reckon I disagree. I reckon there would have been quite good records of who went in and out.
The last internment camps were closed down in 1945 when the war ended, but the last one was closed in March 1946. So 4 years afterwards.
See, the reason why I asked was the fact that I was wondering, because obviously the well-known concentration camps were actively killing, and obviously
no, they weren't exterminating.
Yeah,
they were just keeping them. They would, Let's just say you'd rather go
just keeping them badly, you know.
You'd rather go to a Japanese internment camp in the US than Auschwitz,
of course,
for sure.
but
that's not saying much. Like, these were Japanese citizens who lived in the US.
Or they were American citizens of Japanese.
And were just branded as traitors. Which I find particularly hypocritical, because the US is founded on the idea that, you come to the US, you're American. Yeah, I mean, that is fundamentally what a lot of Americans believe about their country. The idea that you come to the US, wherever you're from, you become an American citizen, you are one of us. But then at the drop of the hat treats people like that.
Yeah.
It's like, say what you want about some of the less, I guess, upstanding nations, but they never pretend to be upstanding. And it's something about that really rubs me the wrong way. Is the whole 1/16th Japanese and you're in a camp. Like that's some sand domain kind of pre-Haiti level of racial kind of allocation. 1/16th.
How strong did the Americans believe the Japanese culture and legacy was that even having 1/16th of Japanese in you would turn you into an informant?
Yeah, exactly. But
crazy.
That's my story.
I didn't know anything about
Wow,
that.
that's depressing.
Yeah, so
God. Hey, for all you listeners out there, please let us know about your emotional roller coaster at shiftyfans@gmail.com.
Not you.
shiftyfans@gmail.com. All of them are going.
Look over there. What's that in the sky? Shiftyfans@gmail.com.
It's all by the sky, right?
Yeah. Val, let's see your last one.
Let us know. Are you 1/16th Japanese? 50hands@gmail.com.
Anyone you know interned in a camp based on their ethnicity? Shiftyfans@gmail.com.
My great grandfather was.
Oh yeah. By the Japanese. Val.
I don't even know how to start this. Your story is truly terrible. I don't know how.
It's a good
I've
good
studied-
story. It's just
yeah.
really depressing. And
It's-
the thing
it's
is
crazy.
also
I
very interesting. I did not know that happened.
Yeah, I don't understand why that part of
Well, this is
history
something I'm
in
always
this,
saying. Is
in
when
this period isn't taught.
when I talk about World War II, because obviously I get into a lot of arguments with people, and people
Like Winston Churchill.
Yeah, like people accuse me of being a Nazi because I'm like the Allies committed war crimes as well, and people are like and I'm like like I mean it's like as I said, 72 million people died during those 6 years. It wasn't all Germany.
It was all Russia.
To be fair,
the English being like.
Dresden.
So, please, just so you know, we don't actually know each other's stories until we sit down and record. So if this feels like a distasteful departure from previous story, I really apologise. Because my story happened in 1960 when the US appeals court finally ruled the novel Lady Chatterley's Lover not obscene. So...
I mean, honestly, the most horrifying piece I think we've had so far.
Yeah,
and the
truly.
effect it had on the American morals.
You think about this
Western civilization has
eroded,
degraded
because of this book.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Lady Chatterley's Lover
is an offence against God.
Is an offence against God, but also a novel written by D.H. Lawrence, published in 1928.
That's Lawrence of Arabia, isn't it?
Yes, of course. Same person.
Okay.
Same person.
And then, after freeing the port, he wrote Lady Chatterley's Lover.
So again, for those who don't know, Lady Chatterley's Lover is a novel written by D.H. Lawrence, and it was published in 1928. The reason why this novel is very well known is because it was one of the first bits of erotic literature that became popular and widely published in the 20th century.
Yeah.
And it's this novel that gave us such beautiful gems as 50 Shades of Grey.
Why is that? I would argue that it was all John Milton's fault with his Miller's Tale.
John Milton didn't write that.
Sorry, not John Milton.
Chaucer.
Chaucer. What the fuck? John Milton. Fuck me.
And so, as I said, in the US, the Court of Appeals judged the book to not be obscene, which means that it was able to be published in its kind of full version, whereas up until that point, because it was originally privately published in Italy in 1928, but it took up until the 1960s for it to become available in its original form, because previously to this, a lot of the sections that included profanity or scenes of a sexual nature were redacted from the novel, which one would argue is...
It kind of takes away from the novel if it's like, she kissed him lovingly. Like, this whole section just Tipp-X'd out. It just has the word lovingly written on it, all the smut, like, gone. Also, can I point out...
She unzipped his trousers.
I love the vision in my head of the Court of Appeals judges sitting there in open court, obviously on record, discussing this book, being like, I read it and it barely gave me a fucking chub, so it's clearly not that bad.
I was actually going to talk about that because, if I'm honest, so I didn't want to come into this basing completely all the information I had from Wikipedia. So I actually read about half of the novel, and what I found is that
You've read half a novel?
You read half a novel for the late shift?
yeah.
Fuck me, I would do that.
Do better next time. Read the whole.
I get through halfway through a documentary, I'm like, yeah, that's enough.
So the interesting thing about it is that I would say, so there is 492 pages, so about like 500 page novel as a PDF, and it takes up until 150 pages before any kind of like actual sex starts happening.
Let's build up. You know?
Which is fine, but what I'm saying is that the majority, I would make the argument that the reason why this book was not actually available for the public to have is because of the themes that it was discussing. Because the kind of the synopsis of the novel is that Lady Chatterley is married to Clifford Chatterley, who is the lord of an English town called Rugby. It's like a miners' town, and she's unhappy in their marriage and she's solicited potentially, but by his gamekeeper that works on the grounds. The reason I think it's an easy argument to make that profanity and sexual content was not the only reason why this book was not available. Divide. It was discussions of class. It was women's role in society, criticism of the patriarchy in a real kind of way. And I think in general, because the protagonist of the novel, Lady Chatterley, attacks intellectual society in a lot of the beginning of the novel. In the book, there is a big plot point is the class divide. But when Lady Chatterley herself is discussing her husband's company and what he likes to do in his spare time, she often talks about the fact that they're the upper class of society that are so invested in having intellectual conversations that they have been removed from what it means to be human, and this is what she's missing. Lady Chatterley discusses how intellectual society are essentially emotionally bankrupt people, because although they are able to go on and on and on and talk about a topic going around in circles, they don't have any real opinions, they don't have any real relationships, because they're so worried and so concerned with the intellectual life, they're not living the physical life. But
it's just like the late shift. We just go round and round in different topics.
And we don't have sex with one another.
And we don't have opinions.
I thought it was really interesting that the book was written by a man, and when it was published and widely available, people thought he was some sort of pervert, because he was writing about the experience of a woman being fucked by a man that she doesn't like. I don't know. People thought he was a pervert for writing about sex from a woman's perspective. But what I found really interesting about it is that it gives a real insight about how this person rationalized the times and how he envisioned this kind of turning point in history for himself. But I don't want to talk about really interesting intellectual stuff. Let's talk about the weird shit in Lady Chatterley's book, because there is a lot of it. It definitely, the novel definitely clings on to old-fashioned ideas of what makes a woman attracted to a man, because
thick.
Because the way that they justify a Lady Chatterley cheating on her husband is the fact that he is her husband is in a wheelchair and occasionally a bath chair with a motor, which no joke, in the first 20 pages of the book is mentioned about fucking 5 times. He's in a wheelchair and he's on a fucking bath chair with a motor. So he's in a wheelchair, he's been in the war, and when he's come back, he's obviously he's been traumatized by the war, her husband, and also he's lost his legs and he is not able to have sex with her. So he is so deeply invested in the intellectual life, but he still loves her very much and sees a role for her in his life. He wants her to be like an active part of his life. But you know what makes him even more deserving of being cheated on, according to this book, is the fact that he's a writer. How pathetic. He wants to write stories. And he writes stories about other people. Ugh, how boring. Why don't you get with a man that rears pheasants?
Is Mr. Lawrence fulfilling his own sexual perversions in this book by writing about himself being cucked?
Potentially.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm like, it seems to be like...
Or maybe it's just like self-dissing.
It was
maybe it's just like a self-aware diss track. He's like, yo, Ladies in England suck, but I'm also self-deprecate myself, so I can say that.
Okay, so Constance, the Clifford's wife, the Lady Chatterley, she is described to like Clifford because he was a hurt thing, and as such, Connie
Big red
stuck
dog.
to him passionately.
Big red
But then-
tuberculosis dog.
Clifford was used to clear landmines in the war.
There's
come
mild
back with
racism in the book as well because it's the 20s, and there is a bit in the book where she describes something as beautiful because it had the timelessness the Buddha attempted, and which Negroes express sometimes without aiming at it.
How wonderfully dated.
I don't even know what that's supposed to be saying.
Yeah, at least
I'm sitting there, I'm there like, what weird racist expression? What's it even trying to convey?
There's like a ranking in it as well because it's saying that the Buddha attempted like that serene stillness, whereas the Negroes have perfected it. So like the Negroes are like a step above Buddha, who still needs to keep trying. Essentially, that's what that comment is saying to me.
But is it? I'm just saying, like H.P. Lovecraft was at least consistent with his racism. It was you could understand it. What? That's not going in. I didn't mean it like that. But I meant the fact that you knew what he was trying to say.
You saw his point of view. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, you saw his point of view. You agreed with him still. I understand.
There's no good way of saying that.
You banged your rug on the table and you rousing hurrah.
If anyone's offended, I'm really sorry. And just contact me, shiftyfans at gmail.com.
So, hold on. But did you know that Lady Chatterley's lover, referring to the gamekeeper, he's actually not the first lover she has in the book. She starts sleeping around on Clifford with a playwright from Iron.
So wait, sleeping around on Clifford on the wheelchair.
He's dumped on the wheelchair and then on top of Clifford.
Do you want to hear about what a cuck he is? He's like, I'm such a cuck that when we went out for a walk in the woods one
Well,
time...
he didn't go out for it, did he? In the woods.
A stroll.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's mentioned... as I said 5 times in the first 20 pages that he's on a bath chair with a motor. This is how he gets
So
around.
he like stops, looks up at the trees and goes, I will never be hard like those again. And he drives down the road and is like, should you need...
But what do you mean walking through the woods? Surely... What kind of wheels does this thing have?
Oh, it's like a monster truck.
It's like a monster truck. That's what I'm thinking. Like off-road?
Yeah, he's actually...
I just feel like...
Walkies!
No, I'm just thinking like a Luke and Yoda scenario where he's just like on her back.
He's on her, yeah.
Yeah, taped.
Yeah, so they're going on a stroll, on a ride through the woods, and he looks at the woods and realizes that nobody will be there to look after these woods because he can't have a son. So he turns to her and he goes, not that I want to know about it, but should you find somebody appropriate and you got pregnant by them, as long as our relationship didn't change, I would be happy for you to have that son and raise him as my own, and so they would inherit the Chatterleys'
The state and name and all that.
state and name and all of that stuff.
Guess what she picked?
But so
Ving Ray?
the first motherfucker she sleeps with is this like Irish playwright who's really famous, but the kind of the upper echelon of society doesn't accept him because he actually came from poverty or even worse, Ireland in that book.
Oh yeah,
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing. And she's attracted to him. He's like terribly cynical, thinks he's really alone in the world, and she's attracted to him because his helplessness and despair reminds her of a child that requires comforting.
So she has sex with him.
Yes.
She's like, you remind me of a child. I've taken off my clothes.
Also, right, so that they have sex, and obviously he gets to come because how good for him.
She doesn't.
He gets to come, and then he like remains erect, and she has to bring herself to pleasure on top of him after his come. And then
Wait. Why? If he's remained erect, was he just frozen like a deer in headlights? And he's like,
The rigor mortis set in.
he expired, and she's like, I'm gonna have to use this old
so like
corpse dick to get
months
my-
after they've kind of begun their affair, and she sees him again. One of these days, he starts complaining about the fact that he has to get hard, and it's so annoying that she doesn't come off at this first penetration, and it's just such a fucking like nuisance. Another thing that I realized from reading about that case is that the flowery language that we kind of associate with descriptions of sex and in fan fiction, for instance, are probably the result of the censorship that was around at the at the infancy of erotica as a genre, you couldn't say he sticks his like big fat cock into a soppy wet vagina. You had to be like, he enters her like a dream or something like that. I don't know. But to finish the story of love, so Connie says that, yes, this was love. Ridiculous bouncing of the buttocks and wilting of the insignificant, moist little penis.
Oh, that's
with
got me
that-
hard. That's good. That works for me.
And that was the story of Lady Chatterley's lover. And that is also the end of Today in History.
Which leads us directly on to
God.
Google reviews, or
No.
as we rebranded it,
Who let them near
No
the keyboard?
Keyboard.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
If you'd like the new title of our show, shiftyfans@gmail.com.
Or if you hate it, shiftyfans@gmail.com. Or if you have a better one, please, at shiftyfans@gmail.com. So today, I've decided to shake things up again, and we are going to be doing 5 reviews of TV shows. I'm doing TV shows today, so I've gone through a list of TV shows that are actually on IMDb's top-rated shows. So there's a list of about 100 of them. So it's your job to decide which it is. Which of the 3 options I give you is the correct show that goes with the review.
I'm excited.
So the first one is as follows. Appalling show. Couldn't watch through it. Boring and basic. Just this person trying to make money again. Waste of time. Burn in hell. 3 out of 10. So I was thinking that was a 1 star, but 3 out of 10.
Burn in hell.
So your options are...
Burn in Hell, 3 out of 10.
Your options are Rick and Morty,
Yeah.
Sherlock,
Uh-huh.
and Planet Earth 2.
Planet Earth 2. I feel like somebody shitty enough to leave such a review would have to do it for somebody truly worthwhile, a talented, time transcendent, epic, legendary man.
I also think Planet Earth 2.
Planet Earth 2.
Because it's a sequel, I said again.
I'm going to go for Sherlock because I think someone really hates Stephen Moffat.
The correct answer was Planet Earth 2.
Oh, that's made me sad. That
Which makes you happy that Planet Earth 2 is the highest rated TV show at the moment on IMDb.
Yeah.
Who was? Yeah, but what was the blank? Please don't tell me.
Just Attenborough trying to make money again.
I was hoping it would be someone else, but they actually named Attenborough.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, but the thing is, the man's a lord.
Which means that
it's
they
like
didn't-
Landry Gentry. He doesn't need the
I
money.
failed to get the point just in denial.
Yeah. So, here's the next one. And this is a bit of a long one. So many people recommended this to me, but I kept reading bits about it and hesitating because it didn't sound very enthralling.
Big
Finally,
word.
I gave in and I watched season 1 and was hugely disappointed. I only kept going with each episode because people kept saying it gets better and asking me to give it a chance and I'd love it. Well, sorry, but I didn't. I have no connection to any of the characters in it and couldn't have cared less what happened to them. Many of the characters, particularly the women, were awful stereotypes with no depth. The script was boring, the plot was ridiculous, and the cinematography and direction was often irritating. 1 or 2 of the actors tried their best, but were good, but it isn't enough when the material is so woeful. Mostly, though, the show just bored me to tears. I have no clue why this is getting such rave reviews, awards, etc. It feels like a case of Empora's new clothes. To me,
Of course, the famous Empora.
no, M-E-M, Pora.
The famous Empora.
P-O-O-R.
No, P-O, like pore,
Oh.
like on your skin.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the emperor of pores. Why not? The people.
I
Sorry.
make that spelling mistake all the time.
It feels like a case of the Empora's new clothes to me, where people are convinced it must be good because everyone else says so. And I've noticed anyone who writes a review on their blog website that does anything short of praise this as the greatest TV series in history is inundated
Become a nun.
Inundated.
with the show's fans hurling childish, badly worded abuse at them and suggesting they are, for some reason it goes, now it goes, speech mark, brackets, offensive word of some sort, brackets,
Why quote some...
offensive morons. So he's saying, offensive word of some sort, morons, close thing, etc. Moron is an offensive word.
Also, yeah.
I'm just saying, but anyway. That disgustingly stupid behaviour in itself tells me more about a show than any review can.
Word. Moral crusade going
Moral
on.
crusade going on. The options are The Wire, The Sopranos, or Breaking Bad.
See, I'm doing that thing again where I thought I knew what it was straight away, so I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to say Breaking Bad.
Okay.
Because I think the people that I don't think the fans of The Sopranos or The Wire would be as verbal as a
That's
fan of
true,
Breaking Bad.
actually. Yeah.
Fan of Breaking Bad, and someone disses it, you're there like, no, you must. Be
Everybody takes up like the
You must
the
be a
jousting
fucking
stick.
beep.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Breaking Bad. You've convinced me.
All in, yeah. Breaking Bad.
It was indeed Breaking Bad, so points for
What kind of fucking idiot?
So also, like,
He proved the woman's point.
also, yeah, what a fucking moron.
You piece of shit!
Yeah, and how many seconds in? Boom.
Yeah.
I'm now still behind. Let's go, guys. Fuck.
Watched, so this is the next one, guys. Watched the 3 first episodes and couldn't find any merits to this show other than hyper expensive, top class production.
Okay.
That's a merit, yeah.
So she just stopped the review there. So,
There's
sorry.
no,
I
by
just
the way,
realised.
there's no and. It just, the list stops there with a full stop. So close period. Limitless means at the service of the most mind-numbing narrative vacuum. It's with 2 M's rather than
The vacuum.
the vacuum. There's nothing here in the way of character development, thought-provoking situations, mental processes. ... There's nothing but shootings, and more shootings. Maybe things take
love if
another
she was talking
direction
about Game of
from
Thrones.
chapter 4
Like-
onwards. But I couldn't stand the shoot any longer. And honestly, I had absolutely no faith in the people responsible for 4 hours of shootings that was even remotely likely to deliver on something worth my time in the next 7 to come. The rating is the most unbelievable I've seen in film reviews ever. TV show review, but fair enough. Options include... The options are Game of Thrones, Band of Brothers, Narcos.
I've seen Narcos. Narcos is not that shooty. Game of Thrones clearly doesn't have any guns in it. I'm
First episode of Band of Brothers isn't that shooty.
I mean, people do die in Narcos, but it's not.
People die in Band of Brothers. It's sort of the
First 4
People
episodes.
die in Game of Thrones.
the Gurgant's instinct to say Band of Brothers.
I'm gonna go for Band of Brothers as well.
Game of Thrones. Wildcard, baby.
It is
Saul
Band of
trying to
Brothers.
lose.
Saul throwing himself. It's Band of Brothers, guys, yeah.
So I was gonna give you a pity point, and I didn't.
Don't
That's
give
right,
Me,
it's
don't,
fine.
don't give it. Okay, right.
I thought it was Band of Brothers, but
This one-
I wanted this. I had to say Game of Thrones just in case. What if it was a wild card?
This-
you know what I
this-
was thinking?
It's never a wild card, Saul. This wild card policy of
Yeah,
yours has
your
left you a loser
policy of
every time.
throwing the game for yourself is what you do every time. It's no longer wild card.
Wildcard, baby.
Here's the next one, guys. I don't care what anyone says. The British are the funniest of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
not British.
That was the joke.
Oh.
The cast. Yeah, and I'm German and Irish apparently. So you're the only one who speaks for the Brits.
Yeah,
With your
97%
97% British ancestry.
And like a good British boy, you turned to me and you said, "You're not
You
British."
don't try. Don't stand
Good
up.
man.
Don't stand up to the
That's what
90%
Brexit is all
club.
about.
I don't care what anyone says. The British are the funniest of all. Brackets. So
They're
the
not.
cast, obviously, are also different. But that's what really makes this show work. I've fallen off the couch so many times
Just in general.
that it's becoming a hazard. This show is entertaining, informative, and hilarious. It also doesn't hurt that one of the characters is the most delicious thing on 2 legs. I just love this British gentleman.
I hate.
He is what men ought to be.
I hate.
Oh,
I
don't
hate
say
it so much.
Sherlock.
I hate it so much when some person is describing how attracted they are to someone by calling them a food. Like that's really nasty to me.
Delicious.
This one definitely goes all the way to 11. The options are Sherlock, The Crown, and Top Gear.
Oh no!
No, it can't be some pervy woman about Richard Hammond. Because it's definitely not about Brian May or Jeremy Clarkson.
James.
Why are you ruling?
James May.
Why are you ruling?
Brian May's the guitarist.
Why are you ruling Matt Smith out? It could be about The Crown.
I don't.
That's not funny.
Oh, God, or Benedict Cumberbatch, Sherlock. But the thing is, there are people that like these people. Just don't get it.
Sherlock.
Sherlock for Jonah.
I'm gonna go Top Gear. I'm
Gear.
hoping some pervy mum fancies Richard Hammond.
Top Gear.
You know
Sherlock.
what? I'm gonna go for Sherlock because I feel like yeah, I'm coming for you. Sherlock fans are shit, and you are all
Well, so that
fucking.
writer, so-
You're fucking weird, creepy bitches from all walks of life, using words like delicious and giving Benedict Cumberbatch the idea that he could be attractive.
Pause, Van, because you're wrong. It was Top Gear.
Yes!
Oh my word.
Oh my
The
god!
It was a pervy mum who were going for Richard Hammond.
Wrong.
Jeremy Clarkson?
Wrong.
May.
James May
Whoa.
was the full quote was it also doesn't hurt that James May is the most delicious thing on two legs. I just love this British gentleman. He's what men ought to be. So there you go, boys. Strive for James
be honest,
May.
I
Go play with your Legos and grow your hair out.
See,
Get
that's-
paid a lot of money.
Well, that's the thing, like, I should have thought James May originally when you were mentioning gentleman and
Yeah, because Richard Hammond doesn't strike me as...
a
A
gentleman.
human being.
No, he doesn't. He strikes me as the kind of person that, when the filter on Instagram turns off, he's not there. Anyway, next one. Last one.
Does that make us even?
I think you're all even. What's the score?
No,
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 no.
I'm too behind because I
If
yeah,
you
you
get
threw
this and we don't, then we're all even. But you can't win.
Nice.
It's the best
Gotcha.
sauce done in a
Oh,
while.
If we have a
Yes.
draw, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I need to prepare a tiebreaker.
Draws are acceptable. Disappointing, but acceptable.
Season 1 was not that bad. But Season 2 was confusing, incoherent, and has a very boring storyline. So much potential and money wasted.
Oh.
I've watched more than 100 TV shows. Good for you. Good for you, sir.
Humble brag.
Humble
Power
brag.
move.
Just fucking dab on the hundo TV shows. Like, who counts?
At least 100.
Yeah, I've watched more than 100 TV shows, and none of them was such utterless crap. I think he combined useless and utterly, and just made utterless, which is like...
I really
speaks
like
in the
that
show.
word though. That should exist.
Yeah, the
Utterless.
utterless crap. This show has become so stupid, I want my wasted time back. I've stopped watching it after the 3rd episode of Season 3.
Oh.
Your options are Sherlock, Black Mirror, and Westworld.
Westworld's only had 2
This
seasons.
whole time I thought it was about True Detective and this person was just a fucking racist.
See, that's the whole time you were talking, I was thinking Westworld, and then you said about the 3rd season. Kind of. Maybe, oh, and this is a typo. Oh,
Double down. Sherlock again.
So you're going for Westworld, Jonah's going for Sherlock.
I haven't.
So it hasn't locked in.
Oh,
I haven't
okay.
locked in.
She's trying to fuck you, say that. She's trying to gaslight you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna double down.
Westworld. Wild card, baby.
Well, the correct answer is Westworld.
We all draw.
Yay!
Fair play.
The real winner is friendship!
So draw! You all got, what, 3?
See, if I would have won if I didn't.
Throw yourself.
If I didn't
again.
throw myself under the bus.
Basically,
But
Attenborough's the reason you've lost.
they really
No, and Band of Brothers. Band of Brothers, I should have.
You're saying you could have got the belt had you not been such a gentleman.
No, what
No,
you're
I'm just saying
is if he
I
wasn't-
shouldn't have. I should. I didn't think I had the chance to win, so I was going for silly answers at the beginning. Then I started catching up again. I was like, oh wait, I can draw this one.
So, I did look up True Detective, but all of True Detective 1 and low stars were basically having a go at the fact that there's a black guy in it. So,
What is with reviewers and racism?
because it's the public. It's the kind of thing where, again, like last time I looked up Schindler's List and people have been like, 1 star, why?
More treatment.
Yeah, like, it's terrible. I didn't want to even look up the Crown's reviews because I clicked it up first of all, and the first thing that popped up was a 10 out of 10 one, and I passed out for about 15 minutes. I went into a fugue state, may have killed a man, I don't know, because I couldn't deal. It broke me. So I couldn't even bring myself to look into the reviews for the Crown in case I encountered more of such people. Just someone just standing up in a bathtub with a little HMS Victory toy, screaming "Rule Britannia" as they typed on their laptop. And I only hope the laptop fell in the war and fried that imperialist motherfucker, because Jesus Christ, the Crown. We've met the man who wrote it, and I honestly just can't say enough that he writes that show to try and get an OBE by just running around as the royal family's footstool. I hate him. I hate his show. I hate everything about the Crown, so I didn't read the Crown. Sherlock.
You.
Apply all of that, but just tone it down a little bit. Just a little bit. Like, I don't like Stephen Moffat, the curly-haired prick who can't write his way out of his own plots. Which is the equivalent of not figuring, getting halfway through wanking and not understanding how to bring yourself to orgasm. Like, because it's not hard. If you write it, you can finish it. I'm just saying. So yeah, I didn't do Sherlock either. I kept it as a red herring throughout. But some of the reviews are crazy. Band of Brothers was difficult. Because Band of Brothers, I think, is the third highest rated one. After it's like Planet Earth. Something. No, Planet Earth 2, Band of Brothers. Game of Thrones was way too high. But all of the 1-star reviews were given away because they were all the sensible people being like, yeah, season 5 onwards is shit.
Okay, so now that we've all learned that the power of friendship beats any crazy review on the internet.
It doesn't beat anyone. You all lost. That's what a draw is. You're all losers.
You could look at it that way.
Pardon?
Look at it in a
No,
fun
that's
way.
how me as the host of This Is What We Do at the Keyboard is judging it. So you've won
You
one.
didn't even know the name of your own segment.
That doesn't matter. I'm in control. Welcome to Venezuela, motherfucker. It's a loss. There's no draws. It's just winning and losing.
Yeah, you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it differently. And speaking of looking at things differently, we're going to delve into some of the weirdest ways of looking at things in our spooky section of the show, in which I will be discussing some interesting piracy cons, or specifically one piracy con. The reason we're calling them piracy cons, if you haven't heard from the last 2 episodes, is because YouTube is no longer allowing us to say the C word, and no, I don't mean cunt. So...
Did not see that coming. Oh, just blew me away. I got John Travolta in Pulp Fiction.
And so we will be talking about various theories and ideas that people share around the world about certain events that may seem a little bit strange to others, and we'll make fun of them or see if if this is something that really requires further investigation. So today we'll
That we do that. We're just like,
How stupid.
So in this...
Except for that one with the murders where we all got corrupted by chaos and joined the Marconi.
This piracy con differs from some of the really early ones that we were discussing, because it's not as ridiculous as somebody saying that giraffes aren't real. Why would their necks look like that? They were invented.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Right?
They were invented by the CIA to control Africa.
This one is about the CIA.
No, because they were only in zoos.
Well, then it's false. Because if it's involving the CIA, if it had anything to do with the real CIA, they would have leaked it all onto the internet by now and just thrown money at the nearest 4chan browser and be like, give it back.
Okay, this piracy con theory refers to something that's called a targeted individual. Do you know anything about targeted individuals?
are they individuals that are targeted?
Yeah.
Yes.
By the
They're-
CIA.
Is it
often
really?
missed.
Is it really bad marketing ploy? It's like, so what kind of groups of people are you doing? No, just one person. Just one person. I'm advertising this.
I thought you meant
Graham!
I thought you meant when you said marketing point, it was for like the American shop Target. Like you'd walk into the shop and a man in a trench coat would walk up behind you in a fedora and be like, "You're a targeted individual," and you'd be like, "What?" And he's like, "They're after you with bargains," and they give you a price tag, and you'd be like, "No." You mean when you're doing sampling of populace and you just decide one person?
No, the fact that you have demographic for what you're
yeah.
advertising, where it's like just one person.
Targeted individuals are people the CIA attempt to pin crimes on.
Yeah.
No.
I said attempt, man. Doesn't mean they did it when ever.
So targeted individuals, the interesting thing, so targeted individuals are people who believe that they have been targeted, and they
Go
believe
on.
they believe that
I feel like Jonah's the closest.
and they believe that the way that it's done. So we'll go into the whys of it. But
Can
basically,
we go to the how they feel they're targeted? What, like they don't how? What, like they're walking down the street, shooting happens at them.
They feel that their advanced technology is being used to attack them or track their behavior, alter their behavior, understand what they're doing, send reconnaissance to various government agencies or financial bureaus or whatever it is.
What you're telling me is a load of narcissistic neckbeards in their cellar want to act like the government gives a fuck that they go to Lolicon.
No, this is what
Actually,
makes
fair, probably would.
This is what makes this insane. So the majority of the people, I mean, the general profile of this, they don't typically come out to be, uneducated people who are kind of harping onto this because of some sort of delusion that's caused by ignorance. The general population who identify themselves as targeted individuals are, of average IQ, of they're functioning members of society. I mean, obviously, when it gets to the later, the deeper down the rabbit hole you are, the more difficult it becomes to be an integrated member of society. But in general, these people have jobs. These people, but simultaneously, these people believe that they're targeted. So the New York Times estimated there are currently 10,000 targeted individuals that exist in America.
Right, are those people who are actually on the CIA watch lists, or people who just claim to be targeted? Because then what the Washington Times is saying is there are 10,000 narcissists in the US, and I can tell you that that's not enough. That's not enough.
So specifically, targeted individuals believe that technology is being used to track their behavior, as I said, and they're referred to in a lot of writing about it refers to RFID chips, so like the chips that we use in animals and chips that we use in cards. Obviously, as we know, their use in animals has primarily been an ID tag, because an obvious reason why an RFID tag wouldn't work in a human being is because in order to track somebody's location as what you have in your phone, it requires a battery, and you wouldn't be able to power such a complex operation through just having a chip with no kind of power supply. So unless somebody's been able to sneak not only a chip but also a battery, it would kind of be very difficult to achieve.
Don't they just put the little ones in animals?
Yeah, but they're not powered.
They're not powered. They're when you
not active.
scan them. It
You
gives
scan
the
them.
ID
It's
of
like a barcode basically underneath
Well,
the
you could
skin.
scam people.
Yeah, but then how would you know?
You can't
Track someone with
Yeah.
a chip like that.
If you hide scanners, you could. If they go through
Shopping
certain
centres.
portals. Exactly.
When you walk in, whoop, know exactly what shop you're in.
Why the CIA can't figure out when Bin Laden is? They don't care that you went.
Because he doesn't go to shopping centres.
They don't care.
If he's dead, that's why.
No, the point is they couldn't for how long? They could just
We can't figure out where he is because he's underwater at the moment.
Yeah. The point is that the CIA cannot flipping find people they're looking for, rummage through their own hotels and destroy evidence. Let alone, why would they care that Billy is going to Target?
Maybe we're gonna
Because he's
find
a
out.
targeted employee.
Ding! The point is that they're tracking us. The technology. The CIA buys their information off other better agencies and just throws money at every problem. If you were targeted by the CIA, a man would run up, throw a wad of cash in your face, and just go.
Dude.
It says CIA.
I can't read Val's notes like
No.
some people.
No, it's not strictly CIA, because obviously targeted individuals exist in other places around the world. The interesting thing is that the idea of technology being used to monitor your behavior, the first instance of it comes from as long ago as in 1810. So we've got James Tilly Matthews, who, I mean, this will be a discrediting factor to his discovery. He was in London's Bedlam Asylum.
Good start.
You ever heard of something called paranoid schizophrenia?
Yeah, so we'll get to that. So he drew up an illustration of a machine that he called the heirloom, and he claimed that it tormented him with gases and magnetic rays.
I know about that.
And so 200 years later, targeted individuals tend to talk about existing weaponry. So instead of coming up with brand new, being as inventive, perhaps, as James Tilly Matthews, or as insightful as James Tilly Matthews, they talk about existing technology. So blind laser weapons that were outlawed by UN in 1998 and stuff like that. They also reference they reference the CIA's Phoenix operation where 40,000 Viet Cong supporters were killed or something. MK Ultra, that kind of stuff. And obviously, so the first time that targeted individuals as a term was first searched on Google was in 2004, and it spiked again, obviously, around 2012 to 2014 when Snowden came out with the information pack on NSA. This year, there was a Kayla doll, which was dubbed as an espionage device by a German regulatory agency and therefore was taken off the market or something like that.
A what doll?
It was a doll called My Friend Kayla. And FDA approved a patent for a pill that confirms whether you took it. So the thing is that the world of technology is progressing and invasion of privacy is becoming more and more accepted.
Yeah, but
so the thing is that it makes it very difficult for psychologists to be able to diagnose people or offer any kind of treatment. Because the thing with targeted individuals is that I think in general you could say that it is a delusional belief that you're being monitored and that somebody is doing that kind of stuff, and it's a symptom that's prevalent in paranoia. In schizophrenia,
and just paranoid people in general. It doesn't have to be schizophrenia.
Yeah. And these phenomenons, and a lot of psychologists who are studying delusional beliefs believe that this phenomenon, the targeted individual idea, wouldn't happen had it not been for the internet because of the echo chamber it created.
Yeah, I was about to say that. But the thing is, we are being monitored. But people just need to stop thinking that, it's the same way like you have an ant colony. You watch the ant colony from afar, you look at its health, you see what they're up to. You don't give a fuck about the individual ants. Maybe bar the queen, who you need to keep pumping out more ants. The point is that people who are like, the CIA cares about it, they don't. Like the NSA are listening. They're listening for
They think of you as a percentage.
Yeah, as a statistic. That's all you are. You're not important to them. It's essentially a mass wall of media that they're trying. Now, obviously, it gets creepier when you talk about, say, China building social media profiles for people and giving them a, civilian score so they can control mortgages, essentially. It's like, that's crazy. But
especially seeing as like with the social credit rating system that something like your second cousin once removed can affect your score because they're still related to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like if they commit a crime, your score slightly goes down because they're a relative.
Yeah. So the point is that that's real stuff, but that's mass monitoring. We are in a mass monitored culture.
The thing is, I think there's so many people. In order to monitor everybody effectively, you'd have to. It's not possible for a small group of people to be able to achieve that, and it's not, I don't think, possible to be able to identify these trends after monitoring people purely through computing, which means that if there is monitoring that goes on such a huge scale, it would require a large group of manpower, huge amount of manpower in order to achieve that, and I don't think it would be possible to keep that under wraps if a big group was doing the surveillance. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
that and also like.
But this theory basically.
Who the fuck cares?
No, who the fuck do you think you are? That you think the
That's
government's
what I'm saying.
just
That's what bothers me about
you.
these things.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
But like, anyone that thinks that the government is spying on them, just think about what do you do in your life that would mean that they care about you.
Well, the thing is, the idea is that they are some of them consider themselves to be special, as you identified.
Well, they're definitely special.
And then some people think of themselves as being more of a random participant in a sample of people that were selected, and they.
But the thing is, you don't need to monitor a human being. We have a pretty good understanding of average people, and that level of spy espionage, we don't need to go into the levels of like, well, did you know the average American spends about 15 minutes on the loo to avoid talking to his wife when she first gets in from work because all she wants to talk about is her colleagues? Did you know that? That's important to the CIA because that's going to help us find the next group of terrorists.
Well, I was thinking like the only way that an individual would be special to the government is if they're from fucking X-Men.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the thing is that, as I said, it makes it very difficult because of the echo chamber that's created by the internet and by communities that believe themselves to be targeted individuals. It makes it very difficult for medical institutions to be able to help, because there is no cure for a delusional belief.
No.
You can do cognitive therapy, but it's very difficult to remove that, because there is a particular way that you're thinking about things, and even if somebody tells you that that's wrong, you're still going to commit those fallacies and judgment that will inevitably lead you back to that delusion. And another thing is that because targeted individuals feel so isolated by their condition and encourage, because, you know, say for example, Saul, I said to you, I feel like I'm a targeted individual, and I kept talking about how the government wants to track my every movement. Inevitably, no matter how much you wanted to convince me of the opposite, or how much you didn't believe me, you didn't want to talk about it, I would feel like you're less my friend than you were before. And it's
so you know, just got an idea. If you ever turn to me and you say the government's tracking me, I'll be like, you need to hide. I'm going to build you a bunker. Like, put you in there, safe.
So, and because of that, you can imagine how that would be an isolating feeling. If you believe if you truly in your heart of hearts believe something to be happening to you, and your family and friends don't believe you, it's horrible. Which means that these people who talk to each other online, they set up these conferences. There are communities in pretty much every part of the world for targeted individuals.
That would simplify the whole monitoring process. If
exactly,
these people
I know,
got
right?
together.
It's not. I honestly believe, in my opinion, that it's actually just a form of validation.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
same with
what
flat
I'm
Earth.
saying. Because as Jonah just said, if you were really, really concerned that you're being monitored, you wouldn't join a group called We Are the Monitored by the CIA and and talk online, because whoever's handling you is going to sit there and just start rubbing his greasy little CIA hands and be like, boys, put the money bucket back. We don't need to bribe everyone in Alaska to get information anymore. Actually, they're just talking online, and we can just watch this. I'm making an account call now. I am monitored. .web, and they're like, dude, it's a username, you don't need the .com. And he's like, oh, I forgot I'm the CIA. He logs on and he's like, hey boys, I'm being watched too.
Yeah,
cool. And they talk to him and he's like, nice. It's madness. If these people truly believe they're being monitored by the government, they'd be dealing in like smoke signal and sending messenger pigeons to one another.
that's fine. But the thing is that if it is purely for validation, that would be fantastic. But I think there's a real argument to make that there is a proportion of the population who are mentally ill.
Yeah.
Yeah?
But seeking validation and being mentally ill.
Yeah, no, but the problem is that a lot of these communities discourage, obviously, going to the doctor. So these are 3 key points that I pulled out from one of these websites. It said, do not engage with the voices in your head. If friends and family don't believe you, they could be in on it. And do not visit a psychiatrist for any reason. Do not take any medication that's comes from a synthetic source.
Sorry, I just had an idea.
It's just crazy.
I think we should get a group of people to go onto one of these websites, infiltrate it, and then tell them that we're here to infiltrate, and tell them that there's more of us in the group.
So people would die.
Just collapse it from the inside, because they'll be like, wait, anyone in this group could just be monitoring them.
Yeah. You're compromised because you put this on bloody Yahoo chat rooms. That's fair. I don't think the CIA would find you on a Yahoo chat room because no one's using it.
Who would?
No,
Yeah.
no, because they're still on Ask Jeeves.
Yeah.
Please tell me where the monitored people
I can't tell you where Basra is. I don't know, okay? I'm a butler.
CIA opens up Google Chrome. Obviously, Google opens, then you just type in Ask Jeeves, goes to that website, and then type in where is Basra.
Do you know who would know where Bin Laden was? It would be the fucking genie. Do you know the one that...
Oh, yeah!
Always knows who you mean, yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with
are you Basra?
So obviously, there's a proportion of them who are clearly mentally ill, and an extreme minority who have gone on to do shootings against members of law enforcement or general members of the public because they believe them to be the watchers.
Well, they do watch. That's their job. They are.
And I mean, when you're thinking about, which is obviously really concerning, because perhaps if there hadn't been such a massive echo chamber of individuals who believe themselves to be targeted, and this community which is very active, and I know that that's hilarious because it's ironic because they think that they're being monitored and then they use online platforms to communicate with one another, but because it's so incredibly active, a lot of people who believe themselves to be targeted and perhaps are mentally ill with extremist tendencies will kind of get caught up in being in those communities and not ever seek help and not ever realize that what they're doing is a little bit fucked up, really. But who is stalking them, right? Who is behind this? You know, if this has any truth to it, who would it be? And so some of the theories that they came up with is the financial elite just want to see how the other,
Oh, it's just curious billionaires.
Oh, let's play a fun game. What are the poor people doing today?
Hey, let's spend millions on watching just one in particular. Look at him. He's back at McDonald's.
Well, we watched. Sorry, when we had our Halloween episode, Becca was telling us about slumming.
Yeah, but I don't believe that that's the modern day slumming where they log on like a weird Truman show where like each billionaire has their. I mean, I'd be proud.
Speak for the birds
to be,
road.
if he paid me, I'd be proud to be just followed around by billionaires so they could be sitting there looking at the camera, being like, "Look at him now. He's back in the shower. He's back in the shower.
Is he bored? Is he having a shower?
Is he bored?
Like callback.
You know, that kind of thing. I don't think that this is like cyberpunk glamping where it's like monitor one of them like some kind of weird Sims game.
Do you know?
He's on a website talking to other people about feeling like he's a Sim. How weird.
Do you know what I'd do if I was a billionaire?
What?
Right, I'd dress down and become friends with the poor person.
And then reveal
Silly.
myself to be their boss the whole time.
But still, some of them have diseases.
Yeah, they do. Some of
Okay.
them smell.
I'll dress down, but wear a big condom just over my entire being.
That won't alert them to your presence. You've
I'm
disturbed
in a
the
big
natural
drawer.
order.
But
They just
hello.
absorb into the old
My
drinking
name-
hole.
Look.
What up, chums?
Hello, my name is.
We're all feeling poor today.
Cool.
Another one could be aliens. You know, because aliens and the financial elite are pretty much the same thing. They're just as unreachable.
Why would the aliens?
Okay, hold on.
Why would they care
Hold on.
about the individual?
Hold on, this is even worse.
Listen.
Can you imagine if an alien generally like BBM'd you? Or whatever?
You always bringing up BBM.
This is just so outdated. No one uses that's my point.
Yeah, it's
CIA uses BBM.
Yeah. So you
You get a little
blink.
blink.
BBM and Ask Jeeves.
Yeah, you get a little blink, a little message. It's an alien being like, somehow you're integral to the downfall and conquering of your planet. And you'd be like, how? And they'd be like, we monitor you and you give us the secrets. And then they're like, we know you humans need at least 2 showers a day. And you're there like, yes. And it's like, and I know full well that you sit. You need at least 6 hours sitting in front of that screen to live. Yes. Yep, you've got it. Haha. Accept our dominion or be coming soon. And it's like, aliens were massacred today by the military because they based their entire understanding of the human race off James.
So aliens, financial elite, you know, unreachable.
The financial
Standards.
elite, I love it.
The third one is neighbours. Your actual neighbours.
Or not the TV show.
No.
Why aren't
would
they
be
watching
better.
us?
The neighbours.
The Australian TV board, like...
Was Neighbours actually about my household the whole time?
Oh, am I the neighbour? Have I got good friends? Well, Neighbours made Margot Robbie happen, so fuck you.
Okay.
Neighbours.
So can you imagine your neighbour just gets to your house when you're asleep and injects you with like loads of chemicals and like puts RFID.
But I love
chips
it how
in.
it's not the neighbours
Like, they
working
have-
for someone.
you know-
It's the idea. It's like
It's just them.
a confederated group of our neighbours. You know what I mean? Like
It's Sam and Jill from down the road.
they're
and
the masterminds.
Sue next door.
What about old Keith? Old Keith, he's in on it.
The whole idea was the fact that basically saying your neighbours are in on it. Your neighbours, if they heard that, would assume it was you. So the whole thing is a
I
blanket
love
statement
the
to mean
idea that
everyone.
This is the thing, right? It's a fundamental lack of self-awareness. It's like, well, I have neighbours. Like, you are someone else's neighbour. Are you monitoring them?
Yeah, it's
that's the whole idea.
and it's also the idea that it's like it
Well, if
goes
you
no
think they-
higher than the neighbour. Like
Oh,
it's
no.
the fact that can you imagine, like, you know these kind of conspiracy thrillers where they break in. It's like, you've been watching me, neighbour. He's on the floor. And it's like, who was telling you to do it? No, I do.
My wife.
The Confederation of Neighbours. And why do you watch people? We're neighbours. It's what we do.
But hold on. But if you thought that your neighbours were watching you, surely you would watch your neighbours. And if your neighbours realised,
Yeah, but then you don't
found
don't-
out about
don't-
you thinking that they watch you, and then they'd find out that you were watching them, it would just.
And then they look across the road and there's me watching them, my
Watching-
neighbours, watching me, watching neighbours.
Oh, it's all
And I mean, this last
wheels
one.
within wheels.
This last one is boring because it comes up in every fucking piracy con, which is that
You've already done aliens, Val.
which is that
Illuminati.
which is that which is that it's the Freemasons mind-controlled field test in preparation for world domination. Secret
They've
society.
been prepping for a long time.
Yeah, they just need to stop doing all the prep. Like, you know,
Oh
like
my
my
God,
asshole
it's
is
like-
clean, come in.
What
It's
if
like
the people...
when you don't want to write an essay, but you keep writing notes. Well, no one really wants to rule the world.
Can I point out about the whole neighbours watching neighbours thing? Can you imagine if there's this forum online and two of the guys both see one another on there, but like, I don't trust Jim. You're in on it. He's a spy. Fuck off. Tim's the spy. And they've been watching one another.
Yeah, but if you have two people that
Yeah.
think they're very targeted individuals living next to each other,
They
That-
kill each other.
exactly, that is immediately the... how is this group still around?
Well, the thing is,
It's-
exactly, how is this group still
It's
around?
going to reach a point when someone thinks that their group is in on it, and then it just will collapse.
The thing is, they have such. I mean, obviously, different sites have different information because it's again individuals trying to make a community online of like shared symptoms. But there are some people who believe that a lot of the persistent medical issues that exist in the world, like cancer, HIV,
Were made by the CIA.
diabetes, like any kind of allergy, any kind of like genetic disorder, have been created by whoever's behind this targeting to test something, to inconvenience these individuals, to punish them. They some of them genuinely experience pain because they believe they're being zapped by lasers from space. I mean, I thought it would be interesting to bring up this one because I feel like targeted individuals theory does incorporate loads of different aspects from other ones, and it is such a classic piracy con, like in the sense that it's like,
And also, hopefully, by laughing so much at the CIA because of their rampant incompetence,
they will stop targeting.
they will
us.
start targeting us,
Oh,
and then we'll go mental, and we'll be part of it too, and no one will believe us because we badmouth them.
To be honest,
and we
like-
won't even be allowed on the forums because like, you guys made fun of us, and the CIA will be like, you can't come on ours either. And we're like, don't have an open Discord, CIA.
It's just, to be honest, to confirm what James has just said, I've been sitting here with a splintering migraine for the majority of this
You think
podcast.
that there's a guy?
So there's a guy with a laser outside
a
of my
CIA
house.
guy with a laser quest gun, like.
He enjoys it too. Like, he loves making my head pound.
Maybe they knew that you'd be trying to bring this up on the podcast, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why they were like, the late shift, they've got too much reach. You got laser.
And we
have-
could
they have-
have too much reach if you email us at shiftyfans@gmail.com.
If you just type that into Ask Jeeves, you'll find it.
And on that incredible note, I would like to say thank you very much for coming to spend your late shift with us. Thank you for joining us for another week. I hope you enjoyed our stories, and we'll see you next week with famous facts and creepypastas.
Yeah, we.
Have a wonderful week. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Well.